And Senator Nielsen.
Madam President, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, it was my honor to be elected to the Senate 4 years after Roseanne Vuitch blazed this trail for women. And in the same class as Diane Watson, a great honor serving with her. Must speak a moment to Roseanne. From that great Central Valley from where I hailed, Dinuba, her home, and where she farmed was only a few miles from Sanger, where I was raised and farmed myself. We had much in common, but over the years, our paths never crossed until we came here. And then we became colleagues and allies. To avoid the bell, and I don't think it was ever called on me, but you'll notice yet this day, I always address ladies and gentlemen of the Senate. That trained me early on. I got into that habit. It's kind of a respectful way to do it, but I always say ladies and gentlemen of the Senate. And it is a respectful way. Roseanne commanded respect. Just her very countenance and being. She was a problem solver. She was forceful. She fought for the agricultural industry. And every time I sit in that room, I think about her and I say a prayer for her. Always delighted in how she had her brother Willie around all the time. He was quite an interesting personality, and he kind of kept the farm up while Roseanne was doing her duties here. But she was one of those representatives who never, ever forgot who she was, where she came from, or who she represented. Later, during my years as Republican leader of the Senate, I was honored to have brought in, on my watch, the first Republican senators, Senators Morgan and Senators Bergeson, who have brought so much to this House, and the good share have been Republicans, been a part of both these bodies. And it's appropriate that, and thank you, Senator De Leon, for having a room, the Roseanne room, and I assure you Roseanne would not mind the good company there, because she did blaze that trail. And I must say, in conclusion, it makes me feel rather good as a product of rural California that rural California produced Roseanne, the first senator who was a woman. But we had one of the pioneer women, Pauline Davis, from Northern California. And she was quite a terror. All good leaders, all appropriate to be acknowledged here today. Democrat and Republican, all credits to the people of the state of California and the people that they represent.
Thank you, Senator Nielsen. Senator Block.
Thank you, Madam President. I stand to share my own experience. I'm for sure all of us coming into the Senate for the first time were somewhat intimidated by the shoulders we stood on, by the shoes we had to fill. Well, unlike most of you in these seats, my seat had been filled by a woman since the 1980s. I was the first man elected in a long time, so the shoes I had to fill had high heels on them. And in my first month in office, I asked my three predecessors to gather together, and two of them are with us here today. I just want to thank them. They gave me the greatest lunch instruction I ever had that day when we all met, along with Christine Kehoe and Dee Dee Alpert, their predecessor, Lucy Calais, who was excommunicated for her views on choice. The four of us had a wonderful lunch together. We took this beautiful photo that hangs proudly in my office, both here and in San Diego. And I just want to thank them for everything they've done for me, for this state, and for this country. Thank you all.
Senator Jackson.
Thank you, Madam President. And members, I too rise in support of this moment. I felt compelled after you mentioned women of your stature and of Senator Watson. On behalf of the Short Women's Caucus, I wanted to stand and say a few words in thanks.
Are you standing, Senator Jackson?
I am, believe it or not. On my tippy toes, but not in high heels. Too hard to walk in high heels, as many of my male colleagues know. But we do stand, and we do stand on your shoulders. And I know, Senator Watson, when I was in the State Commission on the Status of Women many years ago, you were a trailblazer. You were a trailblazer who said, we don't take no for an answer. I have tried to follow that motto, for better and for worse, I might say, but I have tried to follow that. And Elaine Alquist and Noreen Evans and Ellen Corbett, who just left us recently, your shoes are hard to fill and we miss you. And certainly Liz Figueroa, the first Salvadorian ever to be elected to public office in California, perhaps even the nation, who has been a great spokesperson for those people who have also suffered and come to this country for safe haven, remembering what this country is to us, the offers, the opportunity for equality and justice, and the fact that we as women have been the last to achieve that. I remember I wanted to mention Shirley Chisholm, who was the first woman to run for president of the United States from one of the major parties. She was an African-American woman, and she said, and I remember it then, back many years ago, that her biggest problem was not her race, but her gender, and that we would see an African-American as president before we would see a woman president. And she was prescient in those days. And so we have heard comments about the number of women that we've had in this august body, from a high of 42, now presently at 30. And it is incumbent upon us to recognize that there are young people up in the gallery, and they need to see that there are both men and women here, because women hold up half the sky. We have a responsibility to have our voices heard, and one of the places where it needs to be heard is right here. And I know Christine Kehoe, who served this body well, and Dee Dee Alpert, one of the calming voices, always finding that middle ground. I still admire that to this day. And Denise DeChaney, with whom the strength of her understanding of the budget help newbies like me recognize that the budget is also a moral document as well as a financial one. And of course, Sharon Runner, who we expect will be coming back at some point, also a strong voice on behalf of the issues that are so important to us as women. I have a list here. I wasn't going to use it, but I think by way of illustration. Statistically, statistics show that women, more so than men, need to be asked to run for office. We need permission. I don't know why, but we seem to feel that we do. It may be why today we only hold 18% of the congressional seats, 20% of U.S. senatorial seats, 10% of the governor's seats, gubernatorial seats, 12% women are mayors of America's largest cities. 24% of state legislative seats are held by women, and as mentioned, currently in California, in the California Senate, we hold 28% of the seats, 23% in the Assembly. We hold up half the sky. Our voice is a critical voice to be heard, and the lesson that I hope we take home and that you continue to share as role models for all of us is how important it is that we bring more women to the table. We have life experience that is valuable to everyone. We have a passion and a commitment for issues that is valuable to everyone. And until we are reflected in the halls of power as we are in the workforce and in our homes, we will not have achieved that equality that many of you have fought for, many of you and your families came to this country to seek. It is incumbent upon us that we not only honor all these women today, but we commit to making sure that we see more and more women stepping into the halls of power so that our voice will be heard. Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Pro Tem, for putting this wonderful event together.
Thank you, Senator Jackson. Senator Hueso.
Thank you, Madam President. I also wanted to weigh in on this issue as the Vice Chair of the California Latino Caucus. First of all, I'd like to welcome all the former Senate women. Thank you for being here today. It's really an honor to have you here in our chamber once again. You honor us with your presence once again on this hallowed hall. I also want to welcome my constituent, Denise Moreno DeChaney, the former senator for the 40th Senate District and still working hard in our community to help make things a better place for the constituents there. Since 1850, since the creation of our state and our Constitution, our form of government, only 28 women have served in the Senate. It's a very, very small amount of women that have been privileged to serve in this floor. And if you think of, 165 years and to only have 28 women is something that is left in part of the state's legacy in a way that begs us to do something about that and make a change and have a more representative Senate in favor of women. Of those 28, 10 have been Latinas. We've had 10 Latinas serve in those 165 years. And we've had some great leaders here in those years in the women category. We need more of them. But I rise to honor them, to honor their contribution to our community, and vow to work to increase those numbers in the future. And this is such a worthy cause. There have been so few that their contributions need to be noted. I also want to note that our Senator Wolk has Latino heritage as well, so she should be I'm sure she's included in that group. She has to be added to the number of Latinas. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Hueso. We should also note our Chief Sergeant Deborah Manning, the first woman Chief Sergeant in the history of this House. So, would Senator De Leon like to close or off doing some business? Again, I'd like to remind the women are, while he's coming back, I'd like to remind the women there to please stay after session. We're going to take a photograph of all the current and former members. Senator Hall.
Yes. Thank you, Madam President and Senators. As a reserve deputy sheriff and a proud Los Angeles County resident, I am pleased to introduce the Los Angeles County Sheriff, Jim McDonald, my boss.
Ah.
Sheriff McDonald came to Los Angeles over 3 decades ago and began his law enforcement career in 1981 as a 22-year-old graduate from the Los Angeles Police Academy. Sheriff McDonald served for 29 years as the Los Angeles Police Department, in the Los Angeles Police Department, where he held every rank from police officer to second in command under Chief Bill Bratton. During this time, he earned the department's highest honor for bravery, the Medal of Valor. Prior to being elected to the Los Angeles County Sheriff, Sheriff McDonald served as the chief of the Long Beach Police Department. In that role, he implemented numerous improvements that resulted in safer communities, increased morale, and enhanced community relations. I am also proud to call Sheriff McDonald a fellow Trojan. Fight on. Please join me in welcoming Los Angeles County Sheriff Jim McDonald to the California State Senate today. Thank you.
Welcome, Sheriff McDonald. Are there any other privileges of the floor? Seeing none? Seeing none. Thank you again. Reminding to the women senators, please stay after session, and we'd love to have a photo with you as well. And thank you all again for being here. We're all honored to have you. Are there any other privileges of the floor? Seeing none? I'm sorry, Senator Galgiani.
Thank you, Madam President. Members, I invite you to join me this Wednesday, March 18th, on the west steps of the Capitol to celebrate California Agriculture Day. For over 60 years, California has been the top producing ag state in the nation, growing more than 400 crop and livestock products and over 50% of the nation's supply of fruits, vegetables, and nuts. Each one of us has the pleasure of representing farmers and ranchers, whether it be in an orchard in the valley or a backyard garden in Los Angeles. So please join me in commemorating and honoring our farmers, ranchers, farm workers, and all others involved in feeding California and the world this Wednesday starting at 10:30 on the west side of the Capitol. There will be food, farm equipment, livestock, and lots of fun. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Galgiani. Messages from the governor will be deemed read. Messages from the assembly will be deemed read. Reports of committee will be deemed read and amendments adopted under motions, resolutions, and notices. Seeing none, moving on to consideration of the daily file. Under governor's appointments, file item number 1, Senator De Leon.
Thank you, Madam President, as well as colleagues. File item number 1, we have 3 appointments before us today. That's Hugh E. Crooks, Carolyn, or I should say 4, Carolyn Morales, Sean Sargent, and Gina Truitt. These are all prospective appointments to the California Veterans Board. They were all voted on February 25th on a bipartisan vote, 5-0. Mr. Hugh Crooks is a Vietnam veteran who has spent his time working in various positions for Los Angeles County. Caroline Morales is an attorney who is currently a lieutenant colonel in the California National Guard. Sean Sargent is a probation officer in Orange County and a master sergeant in the Marine Corps Reserves. And lastly, Gina Truitt is a homeless outreach social worker for the Department of Veteran Affairs. The board advises the California Veterans Secretary on the operations of the department. Each person brings a different and important perspective. Madam President, as well as colleagues, I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Thank you, Senator De Leon. Any debate or discussion on these appointments? Any debate or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Allen, Anderson, Bates, aye. Bell, aye. Berryhill, aye. Block, aye. Canella, aye. De Leon, aye. Fuller, aye. Gaines, aye. Galgiani, aye. Hall, aye. Hancock, aye. Hernandez, aye. Hertzberg, aye. Hill, aye. Wesso, aye. Huff, aye. Jackson, Latta, aye. Leno, aye. Leyva, aye. Liu, aye. McGuire, aye. Mendoza, aye. Mitchell, aye. Monning, aye. Morrell, aye. Wynn, aye. Nielsen, aye. Pan, aye. Pavley, Roth, aye. Stone, Vidak, Wykowski, aye. Wolk. Wolk, aye.
Please
Anderson,
call
aye.
the absent members.
Allen, aye. Pavley, Stone, Vidak, Jackson, aye.
Ayes 34, no 0. Those appointments are confirmed. Moving on the daily file, file item 7, Senator Mendoza. Not at his desk. File item 8, under Assembly third reading. File item 12, Senator Hall.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. As Vice Chair of the
Excuse me, Mr. Senator Hall, one moment, please. Senator Hall, we'll go forward with your item. Mr. Secretary, please read.
Assembly Concurrent Resolution 6 by Assemblymember Jones Sawyer relative to Black History Month.
Senator Hall.
Well, it says AC, yeah. Says, yes, Madam President, as Vice Chair of the California Legislative Black Caucus, I rise to present ACR 6, which recognizes February 2015 as Black History Month and encourage the people of California to recognize the many talents, achievements, and contributions that African Americans make to the state of California, the United States of America. I respectfully ask for your aye vote on ACR 6.
Any debate or discussion? Senator Weso.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also want to remind the public that this ACR is also about the Latino community. We have our fair share of African-American Latinos in the state, and it's important to recognize their contributions as well, and I thank the author for bringing this issue forward, and we just want to weigh in and express our gratitude to the Latinos in our community as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Any further debate or discussion on this? Senator Hall, would you like to close?
Yes, I respectfully ask for your aye vote, and I thank the support of my colleague from San Diego. Thank you.
All debate having ceased, is there any objection to substituting a unanimous roll call? Seeing and hearing none, ayes 34, noes 0. That resolution is adopted. Also, file item 8. It's my understanding you'd like to take up file item 8, Senator Hall?
Yes, that is correct, Madam President.
Very good, Mr. Secretary. Please read.
Assembly Concurrent Resolution 5 by Assemblymember Joan Sawyer relative to Martin Luther King Jr. Day.
Senator Hall.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. As Vice Chair of the California Legislative Black Caucus, I also rise to present ACR 5, which designates that January 19, 2015 be observed and was observed as the official memorial of the late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and commemorates the work of Dr. King and the civil rights movement in changing public policy in California and throughout the United States of America. I respectfully ask for your aye vote on ACR 5. Thank you.
Any debate or discussion? Any debate or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, is there any objection to substituting a unanimous roll call? Seeing and hearing none, ayes 34, noes 0. That resolution is adopted. Returning to motions and resolutions, this is the time to adjourn in memory. Senator De Leon.
Thank you, Madam President. Colleagues, it is with a great sadness that I rise today to adjourn in the memory of Connor McNair Burns, who died unexpectedly last week, Tuesday, March 10th, at the age of 13. Now, Connor is the beloved son of Stephen Burns, many who you already know as one of the former chief executives of Chevron, who is now with Burnson Marsteller. Connor was in the 7th grade. He was in the 7th grade at Sacramento Country Day School, where he will be deeply missed by his friends and the entire school community. Connor was a wonderful son and a brother and a great friend to many. He will be remembered for his love of classic rock and for his creativity, his kindness, and his sly sense of humor. Now, our prayers are with his entire family, particularly his parents, Steve and Sarah, as well as his brothers and sisters, his grandmother and grandfather. There is a service today at 3 o'clock, I believe, at Trinity Church, if I'm correct. If I'm not, we will get you that information today at 3 o'clock. Again, Connor, 13 years of age, last week, Tuesday, not of a long illness. This is completely unexpected. As you can imagine, Stephen Burns, who many of us know, again, former executive at Chevron, is devastated, as you would imagine, especially for those who have children, especially around that age. So it is with a heavy, heavy heart that we extend our deepest condolences to both Sarah and to Stephen Burns and to their families. So thank you, Madam President, for allowing us to adjourn in young Connor's memory today.
Thank you, Senator De Leon, and of course, please extend the whole House's condolences to his family. Senator Bates.
Thank you, Madam President. Colleagues, I rise and ask that we adjourn today in memory of Harold Schultz, known to his family and friends and business colleagues as Hal. He passed away on March 7th at the age of 67 due to complications from influenza and pneumonia. Hal left a legacy of remarkable professional career as a CPA and also as an active and devoted community volunteer in my home county of Orange. In addition to his own successful 40-year career as a CPA, he devoted a lifetime of service to the profession he loved. He served as Cal CPA Chair and was a 25-year member of Cal CPA's Government Relations Committee, providing strategic advice and counsel to Cal CPA regarding regulatory issues before the California Board of Accountancy. He attended virtually every meeting of the board, providing a wealth of information and perspective on almost all matters related to the CPA profession. The board recognized Hal for his outstanding service and said, few, if any, have had as big of an impact on the CPA profession in California as Hal Schultz. In regard to his community service, he received the 2002 Cal CPA Public Service Award for his involvement as a volunteer and board member at many nonprofit organizations, including United Way, the Retirement Housing Foundation, and the South Coast Repertory Theater, where he served as trustee for 10 years and 2 of them as their president. A consummate professional, family man, and community volunteer, he will be sorely missed by his CPA colleagues and by all of us in Orange County community who benefited greatly from his commitment to family and community. I ask that we convey our condolences to his family as we adjourn today in his memory.
Thank you, Senator Bates. And of course, please extend those condolences to his family from our Senate. Senator Hall, on the prior adjourn in memory for Connor Burns.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to add my respects as well as our President Pro Tem did as relates to Connor Burns. His father, Stephen Burns, as mentioned, is an outlier in our community for the state of California, doing extraordinary work. His family obviously was very much loved, and he loved his kids. He had one of those. Connor was one of 4, very promising young man, 13 years too young. And so I also stand with the President Pro Tem as we memorialize Connor today at 3 o'clock and ask that the Senate adjourn in memory and in honor of the 13 years that Connor graced this earth, and that his spirit will remain to empower others to be as great as he was at this young, tender age of 13. May our prayers be with the Burns family. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Hall. Senator Morell.
Thank you, Madam President and fellow colleagues. It's with great sadness that I rise today and adjourn in memory of Colonel Paul Green of Highland, California. Paul was originally from Ohio and spent his childhood as an orphan. But from these humble beginnings, he grew up to become one of the legendary Tuskegee Airmen. He and his fellow pilots of the 99th Fighter Squadron flew 25 combat missions over Italy during World War II. Colonel Green also went on later to serve in both the Korean as well as the Vietnam War. His career took him all over the world, and eventually he arrived at Norton Air Force Base, which is in San Bernardino, and he retired as a commander. He was a highly decorated officer, even receiving the Tuskegee Airman Congressional Medal of Honor by President George W. Bush. And last year I had the privilege of getting to know he and his wife, and I had a veterans dinner one night where we honored, amongst other veterans, Colonel Paul, and he also gave a brief speech, which was incredible for a man 91 years old. Unfortunately, he did die last month, and his wife Angel was at his side, and they were married for 72 years. He's also survived by 2 children, and he had a deep love and devotion to his country as well as his family. And so he served this country well. And members, I ask that we adjourn in the memory of Colonel Paul Green. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Morell. And if you would make sure that his name is brought forward so we can properly memorialize him. Senator Mitchell.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise today to adjourn in memory of Vern Watkins. Mr. Watkins was born in Detroit in the late 1930s. After earning a bachelor's degree from Wayne State University, he became one of the first black linotype operators in the Graphic Arts International Union. In '63 is when he experienced his motivation to become an organizer full-time. And that was because he drove all night to the nation's capital to participate in the historic March on Washington. And he's been noted to say that it was Dr. King's speech and all the other speeches he heard that day that encouraged him to join the leadership of his local printers union. By the end of the 60s, he helped organize the American Federation of State, County, Municipal Employees Union. In the 70s, he moved to Los Angeles to become AFSCME's California director and became a close ally of then Mayor Tom Bradley and other prominent Democrats, including future House Speaker, now House Leader, Nancy Pelosi. Mr. Watkins served as executive assistant to former AFSCME International Secretary Treasurer Bill Lacey for 17 years until his retirement in 2010. Mr. Watkins was no shrinking violet and loved the work and the issues he organized on behalf of at AFSCME. I had the opportunity to work for him during my choral fellowship, and my labor assignment was to the AFSCME office in Los Angeles, and I learned a great deal. Mr. Watkins is survived by his wife of 59 years, Marion Mason, along with 3 daughters, 10 grandchildren, 5 great-grandchildren, and the hundreds of thousands of men and women of AFSCME. We ask that you adjourn in his honor.
Thank you very much, Senator Mitchell. And please, if you would make sure that you bring his name forward so he can be properly memorialized in our journal. Senator Fuller.
I rise for purposes of announcement.
Without objection.
Members, I rise to remind everyone that this week is Women's Military History Week. This week is dedicated to the women who have served and continue to serve in our nation's defense. I have 5 bases in my district, and I meet a lot of military women, and they're impressive people. So I hope today, if you have a chance to give them their salute and their honor, they would appreciate it. Join me in honoring them for serving our country. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Fuller. Any other motions, resolutions, or adjourn in the memory? Seeing and hearing none, and if there is no other business, Senator De Leon, the desk is clear.
Thank you, Madam President. Colleagues, again, immediately in room 2040, we will rededicate the Senator Roseanne Vuich room, along with our special guests, our senators. Everyone's welcome. And immediately after that rededication in room 211, we will hold a reception. All are welcome. Colleagues, we will come back Thursday, where we will convene at 9 a.m. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator De Leon. And again, to the women senators, both present and past, we're going to stay briefly at the end of session here on the floor for a photograph. With that, the Senate will be in recess until 3:30, at which time the adjournment motion will be made. We will reconvene Thursday at 9 a.m.